So maybe a little bit of an icebreaker to start, so
Okay.
to get to know each other. Okay, quick question. I'm guessing you're drinking a green tea, but looks like
Yes.
a green juice. Okay, okay. So
Green
icebreaker
tea,
here.
matcha. Yeah.
Yeah, coffee, tea, or green juice.
All of the above. So I plan mine's like accordingly. Like I try to be efficient. So I have coffee in the morning. I have coffee in the morning when I wake up. I do like my own espresso at home.
Yeah.
And then I have juice when I get to work because my office is the second floor, Broccoli Revolution. So I always have a green juice, super green, like kale, spinach, ginger, lime, green apple, and like we call it the number one. I have that in the morning, and then I do tea in the afternoon. I do matcha in the afternoon because I don't want too
Mm,
much caffeine, but I want like a little bit. So around two
beautiful.
o'clock, yeah, I'll do a matcha, yeah, but no
The
milk, no milk.
no milk.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I remember that, how convenient it was to just go to work and be like, hey, can I get this mean green juice or this metallic cleanse juice? Just so good to have
yeah.
that in your, vicinity. All right, well, another question. One thing you cannot travel without?
Ooh. A book usually. I like to read on the plane, or I like to read like when I get a chance. And most of my days I have like audiobooks on my phone, like when I'm in on the train or something. But when I'm actually traveling, then I get to sit down. I'm one of the few people who actually like long plane rides
Mm,
because I don't turn on Wi-Fi. I could actually like a long plane ride. I can actually watch a movie. I can read a book.
yeah,
So I actually
relax.
enjoy traveling on the plane for a long
Tune
time. Yeah,
out. Yeah,
yeah,
tune out
yeah,
completely. So I'm
yeah,
also
yeah.
gonna like make sure that I don't over speak on top of you. So if I don't respond, it's not that I'm not listening, okay? Because
Got it.
just usually with the interview. All right, well, let's get started on our
Okay.
questions. Nick has so diligently helped us put these questions together after doing some research, but I love to just do this. We try to do this as very conversational. I feel like we're very similar in the sense that we're social entrepreneurs. We want to use our businesses to do good. And so I really want to hear about your background story. So I know that just recently you held a gala for the Myanmar earthquake, right? And you rounded up
Yeah.
24 chefs and just raised 1.9 million baht for Medical Action Myanmar. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on that. How are
Thank you.
you
Yeah.
feeling?
Good, good. We actually did like three events in like 3 weeks. So we did like smaller ones at our space, and then we did a big gala one. I think I guess I can start get into it because it's a bit of a serious topic. But
Yeah.
so for me, like working in food and working in impact, like it's a medium, right? So like every time there's a disaster, whether it's like COVID or there's something like the earthquake, like people want to give back, and but they often don't know how to, and it seems like money seems to be the easiest way, right? But what that also is the problem with that is that people get worried, like where is the money going to go to? And for me, I'm the same way, so especially working impact, I can see that not always intentionally or unintentionally, but sometimes money doesn't get directed the right way. So with situations like what's happening in Myanmar with the earthquake and what's currently happening with the political state, it's not simple as, oh, I want to help people and I give them money. So it was actually very, very complicated to get this like not up and running, but to get this plan because all these people did want to help. That was the easy part. And the chefs were amazing. Everybody was like on board. That was actually like coordination's hard, but getting everybody on board was actually the easiest part. The One of the harder parts was figuring out the whole line. Like, okay, chef, what are they doing? And then when the money comes, so I focused a lot. I had a lot of the chefs. They're amazing. Like there's like Dylan from Bolan. There's like Chef Daniel. There's Megan, who's like a food writer. There's Dustin. He does his own coffee brand called Left Hand Roaster. So they were doing, and then there's Todd who runs a bar called Wasteland. So they were doing a lot of the chef coordinating. My job was more to figure out, okay, the money, where's the money going to go to, and how to make sure that they really receive it. And with that, like because of what's currently going on in Myanmar, like a lot of aid is getting blocked actually. So like most normally you would think, okay, let's give it to the most well-known organization. Let's say I'm just throwing a name out, but like let's Red Cross or like UNHCR. But in this situation, that's probably the not I hate to say, but not the most efficient way to use the money right now because the way it works with government and a lot of government disasters is the biggest ones are the ones who get like zeroed in the most. So the Burmese government is actually blocking aid from large organizations because those organizations have to go through the government. They can't go like behind, So they actually were blocking all that aid. So they would block it at the borders at the airports. So that was a really big deal. So I talked to those organizations. They would update me on that, and then so I started researching other organizations that I know and other people. I'm familiar with tribes and community leaders. So I'm talking to Karen tribe leaders they're like, oh, we can just bring it, sneak it over the border in a truck, just give us the money. And I'm like, that sounds great,
I
but
don't
that's
know.
also not the most, like they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. But I'm a systems and results guy, like a systems guy. So even though the food is getting there, it's just one meal, right? So what is it? So ideally that probably wasn't the best way to spend our money either. So through all this research, we were able to find Medical Action Myanmar, which
Mm,
is they're let's say like a medium-sized NGO that's based out of Myanmar. They have 18 clinics on ground. So any organization, no matter who they are, because of the current state of the government, they would have to work with locals. Like they're not going to have an office there. They're not going to have as many staff there because of current state, but because Medical Myanmar has clinics there, 18 clinics all over, they already have volunteers, they already have staff. So they were able to, get already be on
oh,
the ground and then also get to the area. So the epicenter of the earthquake, I'm sorry, I'm getting into all the details
yeah,
of the
no
earthquake, but
worries. Yeah, we
but
want
it,
to know
it,
more
it's a
actually.
very important topic. I think that the world is actually kind of like the earthquakes made the world take a little bit of a look at Myanmar, but there's a lot more to look at and it shouldn't be forgotten,
Mhm.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of suffering going on now. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So it should,
especially, yeah, just all over the world, there's so many other
yeah.
issues that's happening, and who gets the airtime. It's hard to, take a stand for it. And I think what you're trying to do is with this event, you're trying to pull more, not just media, but more attention and awareness around these areas. Um, yeah. So is there anything else you want to add to the
Just
Myanmar?
that the organization we picked, like they're able to kind of get to where the military is blocking. They're able to get to
Mm,
the hands of the people who really need it. So I just would like I think it shouldn't take such a big thing like an earthquake for us to pay attention to countries are suffering, and it's not going to be taken care of with one donation. It's going to be taken care of with continued support and actually globally putting pressure on the government and the world's and the
yeah.
governments of each country to actually take action, because no matter how many donations we put in, it's not gonna help. It's not gonna help build up
Hmm.
their houses. It's not gonna help. It'll just help put a band-aid on it, right? So
Yeah.
these are things that governments have to fix, and we have to put that to light of these issues. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll end Myanmar
absolutely.
on that before I get too deep in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also that there are new events that are occurring, and then we tend to shut off and start to pay attention to the next one for just a brief minute, and then another one. So we're ending up in this kind of spiral. So what you're doing is amazing, and we really commend you for pulling people together, and chefs together to organize this. And I
Yeah,
think restaurants can really learn from it as well.
yeah.
So you mentioned earlier the Karen tribe, the Karen cuisine. I know that under Na Project and Na Cafe, you've done a lot of sustainability work around that as well, and kind of bringing attention to these tribes. What's the goal of it for you, and how do you use these dinners to send your message across?
Yeah. So I created now projects is I call it like a food platform. So it's a platform using food and beverages to create positive impact. So we use we use food to connect to other issues or organizations. We work with like upcycling. We work with food waste and SOS. We also started working with a lot of refugee organizations like Asylum Access Thailand. These organizations, what they do is they do either policy work or they do like they're lawyers, so they help with okay, people resettling and making sure that all their paperwork is set. So what we do is we partner to do livelihood programs. So by when I say platform, then that means that it can connect to many vulnerable communities. And with refugees, we'll run a yearly program where different refugee families that have been in Thailand. So basically, Thailand's like a layover for them. They can't legally live and work in Thailand, but UN gives them a card, and so they resettle into another country, possibly Canada, definitely not the US, maybe. maybe like Australia, some New Zealand, so that while they're here, they actually do not have like income. Usually their
Mm,
incomes will come from either NGOs or mosques or churches, depending on the religion. So
mm,
by us connecting to these organizations, what we do is we run a food livelihood program. We'll go through a whole training process of I always say like it's kind of like my mother, who's a really good cook, but she could never run a food business. She
mm,
just kind of give you too much food, and like it would just be, everybody would enjoy it, but it would not be a profitable business. So we run these. We had like an amazing Palestinian grandmother who makes amazing baklava, and like a Syrian aunt and a Ethiopian family. Like they make amazing
mm,
home cooked food. We'll run through a whole process with volunteer chefs, like amazing local chefs who do everything from plating to costing to sanitation to knife skills, and kind of run through
mm.
this whole program. After the program's over, the goal is we run these dinners called the Urban Refugee Kitchen. And what that does is it allows them to, one, test their skills, kind of like a
Yeah.
test. Two, it allows them to kind of like get more income. Income, a usual dinner can support housing, food, more
Mm,
income they have. And then another one is actually to talk about these issues without making it too stressful. Like, there's so many stressful things in the world, but I think a good way is to kind of break bread, talk
yeah.
and actually still talk about them, and relate and see how everybody's suffering without it making super depressing. So we run these
Mm-hmm.
on a monthly basis. Sometimes we run more than a month. We do outside catering. We do it at different places, and that's how like different care and try everything from like Hmong refugees to Karen tribe to
Yeah.
Syria. It's super international, super international.
Mm,
That's one part of our project. And also we run a youth program from
mm,
the NGO I run called Sati, for at-risk and underserved youth, kids who've been in trauma, abuse, sex trafficking. We run a training program similar to what we do with the refugees. And then they also work as staff and cook. So it's kind of like this big, I said this big happy family of very eclectic and resilient people.
mm, mm. I just love how you use food not just to serve people and to sustain people, but to really utilize it as a medium to tell other people's stories and other underprivileged, shine a light on them. So speaking of the Karen cuisine, sorry if I'm
Yeah.
mispronouncing it.
Yeah.
I watched that short documentary on the Living with the Land by
Yeah.
Lynn
Yeah.
Nanticha. Yeah. Um, and it talks a lot about taking care of the land, reciprocity with nature, and also our communities. Oh, first of all, I want to ask, like, are you related to Hill Tribe communities at all?
Oh, so there's not related, but through our NGO, we work
Yeah.
with a lot of Hill Tribe communities. So we work with youths in the communities. So we work with
Okay.
a lot up north, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai. We work with a lot of community on a monthly basis, actually weekly basis. We have a team that goes up and does mostly mental health
Mm,
and sex education through the
okay.
communities. Yeah.
Beautiful. Because sometimes we often think like we care a bit more about these people
Yeah.
because we're somehow connected to them or our ancestors
Yeah.
from there. So you obviously extend your empathy towards other groups of people such as at-risk youth and
Yeah.
indigenous peoples, and it has to come from somewhere. Where does it begin? Like how does it bubble up?
I think I would say that I think I like problems, and it's kind of like a can of worms. I think when you work in the impact sector, people tend to like block things up or segregate them, like poverty, equality, environment. But from my experience of over 10 years working impact, everything is connected. You know,
Mm,
if
yeah.
if a family is poor, most likely they'll have nutrition problems, and they'll probably have education problems. And if they have to like work off the land, and they might have they might cause environmental issues. If they're a small food vendor, they're going to use plastic. So it's like I don't see how people can be able to like just be like, I'm just going to do the environment. I'm just
Label.
going to follow. So I don't believe in labels. So
Mm,
usually like a lot of the work I do is one, it depends on the resources we have. I think that's also why I do a lot of projects, because it develops more resources within our ecosystem. So it's like, and also it depends on how what problems come to us, and if we can actually effectively tackle it, because it has to be sustainable, right? So that's how it starts from, like working with youths, because that's my background actually. I always worked with youths and psychology based,
mm,
back from growing up in the US. till now. Like that was the first start, and then from the youth, then we met like migrant youths and refugee youths, and then we met their parents, and then like we go up, we work with schools in Bangkok, then we worked up schools up in the tribes, and so it kind of everything just kind of connected, and vulnerable and underserved tend to kind of get clumped up, but
Yeah.
they I guess they attract each other in a good
Yeah.
and bad way. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this interconnectedness that you're talking about of caring for people, it extends to also caring for the land, caring for our environment. And I think that when we're in restaurant field, generally when we're talking about being a social business, it's selecting one thing over the other to focus on, right? Whereas for you guys at Broccoli and also Sati and that project, you're trying to utilize these different arms of nonprofits and businesses to cover the entire chain, the entire cycle. And I know that you have had this program, or I don't know if it's still running, but like 9 baht from every juice purchase at Broccoli goes to Sati, and then the
Yeah.
coffee. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe tell me a bit about that because I think that
Yeah.
speaks a lot about the circularity that we really need, more so in our mindsets than just
Yeah.
systems, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so I kind of grew up in restaurants, like ever since like a young age, and I worked in restaurants, and when I got older, I'm like, I don't want to do anything with restaurants. But then like now a lot of my work is around restaurants, and but what I realized is that it like things can be mediums or they can be platforms. So I use the word platform a lot. So even when like with Broccoli or any other businesses I run, I consider them platforms. So it's not, the goal is not, it's important for customers to come, but the goal is not to not to count covers. I think that's very limited to count how many people are coming to dine every day. And but the goal is to, other than that, is to see what solutions and problems exist within the business and how to make it a better business, both for the environment and the world. So with Broccoli, from the beginning, they had like three main goals. One is just eating healthier, whole, vegetables and more plant-based, as an option, not as the only choice. So I think just by having that balance, you can help the environment, you can help your health. So one, eating more plant-based whole foods as an option for everybody. Two is environment, just by reducing carbon emissions through local ingredients, eating more plant-based. Three is the social impact part. So how can we leverage our business to create a positive social sector impact, whether it's like the dessert, we have desserts from a social enterprise called Tira, Steps by Tira, that they train neurodiverse youth in like baking skills. We have like ingredients from farms. We have like these programs that 9 baht that is donated to City. We have upcycle plastic furniture. It's not 99% or 100%, but as much as we can have fun or think about how every part of the business can be beneficial, or at least not take away too much from the world and the environment. So I try to use that logic in Broccoli, and every business I run is it hopefully by having that business, it adds to the world and not taking away from the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost like you're deciding on um, a conscious thing to do for every single layer of that business. And it's not just selling a juice, right? You
Yeah.
can sell that juice, but also bring back and give back in return to an organization or your
Yeah.
organization, which can
Yeah.
then turn into tenfold more impact. And then from there, you can bring back even more towards the communities that you're serving. So that's what I think is beautiful. And not a lot of businesses, unfortunately, have that kind of full circle um,
Mm.
thinking, long-term thinking, I would say. So do you see this as kind of the future model of restaurants?
I did it till COVID. I think COVID flipped everything up in the restaurant business. I think it's suffering industry right now. I can't say globally, but from my experience in certain countries, US, Thailand, and where I've been traveling, Hong Kong, I feel like the restaurant business is actually at a bit of a shaky scenario right now. I mean, ironically, people always have to eat, but I think the identity is a bit lost right
Mm,
now because COVID. I would say that probably is the most affected industry was the F&B industry, because people are still paying rent, high rents, inflation, people are spending less. So even right now, like post-COVID, things are not back to normal, and it's change. I don't want to say maybe there isn't a normal, maybe this is normal. So I
yeah.
do not think that especially the way the world is going. I feel like it's going backwards a lot of ways. People are less kind sometimes about certain things,
Mm,
and we can also see it. Like we're very lucky, we have very, very good customers and who love our mission, but I also feel that we're niche, because we do get an average customer be like, okay, why is this expensive, or why is this, or why is there tax on this, and yeah, and who always be like me, and I understand that, people have their own needs to take care of. So to
mhm.
make to answer your question in a long rounded way, I don't think this is, I wish it was the future, but the way I see it now, it doesn't seem like it is going to be the future to me. Not to sound depressing, but yeah, yeah,
It does,
yeah,
because when I think about it, I
yeah.
mean, you're not making it depressing, it's the
Yeah,
truth.
I'm realist. I'm a realist. I'm
You're a
a very
realist.
optimistic. I'm a very, very, very
Pessimist, yeah.
optimist. No, I'm optimist. I'm a like a,
Optimistic,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm,
realist,
I'm yeah, I'm an optimistic realist. Yeah. I'm very,
very
very
much.
optimistic, but I'm also optimistic in what I can control. And
Mm,
I don't throw my thoughts or my mission or whatever you want to call it on other people, because that's their right, right?
yeah, you don't really want to be preaching it, and just kind
Exactly,
of
exactly.
use your platform to demonstrate and showcase what you do and hopefully bring people along with
Yeah.
you. And I think that really resonates because I had Grassroots Pantry for 7.5 years. I'm not sure if
Wow.
you knew of this restaurant,
Yeah.
but this was at during the time where plant-based was still very new in Hong Kong. And very much like you, the
Yeah.
focus was we wanted to create a space, a cafe of sorts, where we can teach people about the issues of our food system, or give them knowledge of how to prepare healthy, nutritious, plant-based cuisine on their own. So giving them that kind of sovereignty of doing it themselves rather than relying on others, others to feed them. And I think that that's why, listening to your story and hearing about broccoli, it resonates truly. And with COVID, I also agree and feel that I think as a social enterprise in a stable environment, it truly thrived, and people were were in very, I guess, pleasant situation. They didn't have that much stress, back then. But I can't imagine running the same
Mm.
restaurant with the same model nowadays, And if
Yeah.
I were to open Grassroots again, it wouldn't be this way, because we were very tight in terms of the business, and whatever we earned, it went back into
Yeah.
um, doing more good, I guess. Yeah. And like you, customers who came in also saw, this additional tax that we added, or additional percentage, which went to Zero Footprint when we
Yeah.
partnered with them back in 2018. And um, and customers, I think, when they come to restaurants like yours and mine back then, they already instinctively know what it's about, and I think that they have they believe in it somehow, they trust in the concept, they trust in the integrity of the restaurant and the business. So most of them would actually be okay to give back, and to through restaurant vehicles actually be able to learn where they can give back, what they're giving back to, what is the issue that we're facing right now, how can I help, how can I do more, and so, like, what I want to just say is restaurants are real, powerful vehicles for change. And anyone who's still running a restaurant, like, try to extend it such that you are running it but also be able to do more with your platform, right? I guess I also know a bit of your ethos behind what you do. And it comes from this understanding and knowledge that we're all one, person foremost, and that if we are in this space of privilege, we can actually extend more to help others. So as outsiders at this time, we can easily be desensitized by the constant stream of, news and just negative news that's happening, disasters that's happening. And from personal experience, the first time, like, I actually felt empathy and pain for others was during the 2004 tsunami, when I was watching on TV what was happening, right? and this magnitude of disaster could actually affect over 200,000 people overnight. So I want to know actually, can you recall the first time that you felt deep empathy and pain for someone or something outside of yourself?
I think it was a big part of my childhood. I mean, not because I faced a lot, but because it's something that was kind of deep rooted, like in my family structure. So my parents and my mother, especially my mother, was always about like, giving back. I grew up in a very Buddhist philosophical family, and it's still a big part of my life. Buddhism as a philosophy, and I always kind of been instilled like, okay, you have a lot, because my parents have given me a lot, and like, they always kind of taught me about giving back. So ever since like a young age, I mean, I remember like just like volunteering in high school at like a hospital, and I can't do much. I'm just a high school kid, and we have like what I do is do arts and crafts, and it was an HIV ward for youths, so it was quite a bad area in New York, and we go in and there's like a youth HIV ward, and I would go with a video game, like a Nintendo, a rolling Nintendo, and we'd just go around to each room playing video games with like kids who actually a lot of them were born with HIV, and then they were we'd be playing video games, and they would have to come in, someone have to give an injection, and I'm like, oh, I don't like needles, and then it would be so normal to them, and I would see all these kids who like they're just used to pain, and I think at a young age I realized that like not everybody can choose the pain in their lives they're going through, and there's so many different levels to that, and so it kind of became like a big thing with me ever since I was young, of like, okay, like being around suffering and pain, I hate to say, and how to really understand that the best way I can, and maybe some tiny way be a part of like helping people with that pain. I don't know how, whether it's through healthcare or food or whatever it may be, or money, whatever it can be. It kind of has been like a bit of an obsession of mine from a young age. Yeah.
I would guess your Myers-Briggs sign next, but I won't get
Yeah.
into it for now.
Okay. Okay.
Um, okay, so I know that you've been spending a lot of time, or you have spent a lot of time working with communities in northern
Yeah.
Thailand, where climate change is no longer a distance issue. Flooding, deforestation, and extreme weather are already affecting daily life. So, what
Mm.
have you actually witnessed firsthand in terms of how people respond in those moments of crisis right now?
Yeah. So ironically, I would say like, you have to kind of pick your lane, but sometimes, the lanes get crossed, and like a lane that I've always kind of been like straddling is the environmental lane, like because like a lot of the work I do is very clear cut towards people and youth, and then like, but like last year, and I've always thought about the environment as much as I can, as far as, let's say, ingredients and sourcing and pesticides and just the whole manner of that. And also I've learned a lot about income, like people debt. So farmers, through the years, because of the land, the areas I work with in the tribes, I work with a lot of farmers, and then I learn about. My thing is that I don't think that I need to learn as much as I can. I feel like, and I have to learn from the people, and not, so a lot of times a lot of my process is through just meeting people and talking to them from like different walks of life. So a lot of the farmers, get through debt and from farming and the land and pesticides. It's just so complicated. Um, Last year, I mean, I feel like I got hit with a bit of an environmental brick, because been working up north for over 10 years, and mostly at schools and mental health programs and youth programs. And then last year there's always been flooding in Thailand, but the usual flooding in Thailand is usually because of what's the word, like irrigation, like garbage gets stuck in the sewers and drainage, and or the rain just rains too hard that everything can't get drained fast enough, or the rivers get flown up. So it's flooding because of geography, not necessarily flooding because of global warming or anything like that. But what happened last year is the flash flooding, which never happened. Like up on the mountains, there's flash flooding, and people, schools that we worked with, they were getting, all of a sudden, they were like, villages were getting destroyed, and I didn't make sense to me at first. I'm like, where's the water coming from? Right, they're on top of a mountain. we were getting all these distress calls from like these schools that were getting destroyed and villages getting destroyed. So I went up there with the team, and we saw to work with the youth, and we saw like villages, and we saw youth who were just like, the kids would, every time they saw thunder, they would cry now because they're afraid, because and the water flash flooding isn't like flooding. It doesn't go up like this. It's like all of a sudden this stream of water comes down, and I'm like, what is going on? And I started to ask around and research, and then there were, I can see that there's pretty much three main causes that or several main causes that from what I saw. One is the obvious part of climate change. Like there's these weather patterns that are, normally they shouldn't be raining that hard, but then there's like the weather from the hot air, the cold air from the ocean, the hot air from the above, and the mixing moisture, and it was all these crazy weather patterns all over the world. So one, heavier than usual rain through climate change. Second is like just like the irrigation, like what happens normally when water comes down the mountain. Usually roots and trees stop it. So there's something called mountain water. That's where they get a lot of their water from, but you can easily get it from a stream. But now it just like a whole like ocean coming your way. And the people I work with a lot on those mountains, a lot of them were, I'm looking at, some places are getting flash flooded, some aren't. And why are certain places getting more flash flooded than others? And I found that they're the people who are growing corn. And I'm gonna get I'm gonna get a little heavy on this. So corn is grown for animal feed in Thailand. You know, I talk about this. People know, like, there's a conglomerate in Thailand called CP. They're like, they're top three in the world now with animal feed. So they get farmers to grow corn that's not edible for humans. Actually, they're just like really low grade quality. And the thing about corn is there's no roots, right? So like the mountains where you go up, where there used to be trees, now there are all these small corn stalks. So imagine if water's coming down, there's no trees or anything or roots to absorb the water. There's just room coming down. So it was very clear that certain villages who were doing like rotational crops, they're doing like, growing within the forest, doing, under shade growing, they weren't getting flash flood. And then you go to the villages where it's like corn cover, they're getting boom, flash flooded all over. So that for me was like, an eye-opening situation where there's not only is there's climate change, there's capitalistic, food conglomerates that are just, like destroying the environment as well. So
Yeah.
I became a bit more adamant about that last year. I haven't figured
Hmm.
a way to tackle it, but I think people need to kind of understand this more. And I did talk to
Yeah.
the villagers. I'm like, why are you growing corn? And they're like, well, before this, we never had a
Subsidized.
motorbike. Well, they never had, no, it's not government subsidized.
Okay.
It's bought it. I mean, there's a buyer, right? So there's a
Yeah.
clear cut buyer, right? So it's a clear cut form of income. And I asked them, they're like, oh, well, they're like, well, before this, we never had motorbikes, right? So
Mm.
that's a very good argument. So if I'm going to tell them don't grow corn, like how are they going to pay for their motorbike, or how they're going to,
Yeah.
we're going to grow kale there? I don't think, we have enough kale eaters, to subsidize all the,
Yeah.
cows that
And
are, yeah,
And that's exactly the issue that we're trying to tackle with, Zero for Print and our
yeah,
projects is monoculture is creating a lot of these issues where farmers then rely on the single income
yeah,
stream that is not resilient. It's not resilient for them as a society, and it's not resilient for us as in the environment. And so when we're down there or up there in these projects, what we're trying to do is create several income streams through growing multiple types of crops, perennials, shade, um, vegetable crops that can actually rotate throughout the year. And therefore, you're providing these farms with the ability to stay resilient in times of climate change.
mm,
You're very right. Like it's because of these heat domes and these flash floods and the combination of growing monocultures with very shallow roots that has created so many of these problems for so many small communities, smallholder farming communities.
we're trying to work on the supply chain part, because I think that until the, what's the word, the public, or the people who actually like spend money, until they're willing
Knows.
to support, because like that monocropping is going to animal feed. Animal feed usually is
Mhm.
for like pigs and cows all over the world, which traditionally is not even a part of Thai culture, beef eating. Thai
Mhm.
people eat seafood and they eat like chicken farm raised, it's called kai ban. It's like, free range chicken. So
Yeah.
like I think this, I mean, I'm also going to get it into a little more economical, philosophical, but I mean like people use beef eating and proteins as a show of wealth in
Hmm.
an old school in an Asian culture, right? So if you have money, you eat a steak. You don't eat a salad, right? So it's a supply and demand thing. I mean, economically, it doesn't balance out for people because if you have to battle large global size conglomerates that are keep on pumping money in to feed people who want to eat at buffets and as many like monocropping as we do, we can have the most amazing strawberries and the amazing coffee. It's going to be very hard to battle the buffets. So we need to,
Mm.
until people learn more about what the choices they make in their eating. Of course, you can still eat good. I mean, I eat pretty. I like to eat it as well.
Yeah.
But it's like being more conscious of like what you eat and where it's coming from. It's gonna
Yeah.
be like still gonna be a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah. Also, just changing the way that we
Yeah,
look at the value of food, rather
yeah,
than it being just through price or, quantity, can we look at it
yeah,
based on nutrient density?
yeah,
So how much of one regenerative carrot or one carrot that is not sprayed, it's organically grown on a field that is regenerative space, compared to crops that are grown in conventional farming. The nutrient density is so much higher. I think it's 1 to 90 on
mm,
antioxidant levels. So you'd have to consume 90 conventional carrots in order to yield the same amount of antioxidants for one really well grown carrot.
yeah,
So can we look at the value of
yeah.
food differently? Is, I
I mean, that's a
guess,
really good point.
yeah.
That's a super, I mean, eating well, like I mean, healthy, like you said, becomes more a luxury these days, which is sad,
Mm,
because you can go to a supermarket and you go to the organic section, right? And it's usually the
yeah.
higher price stuff, and that's also because of demand too. I think, if
Yeah.
demand and the supply and everything balanced out, then it
Mm.
could, the numbers, like you said, the pricing is a big issue, I think,
And
uh,
also, farmers aren't the ones who actually eat the better food most of the time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
when we're doing these projects, our focus really is to provide for the farmers first and foremost. Yes, they can grow, but they can also eat that food themselves.
yeah.
And that's what we mean by long-term resilience. And there's something that you mentioned on an interview about sustainability, which I really, really love, is, it's not about giving people money and that's it, right? That's just a band-aid, but it's giving people the opportunity to fish on their own. And um, I guess that's like the difference between, a charity nonprofit and one who, we're running a social enterprise. We're also trying to equip people with the skills and tools and the knowledge to bring that forth so that they can be empowered to be strong themselves, be resilient themselves. So I guess we can go back to Sati a little bit to talk about that nonprofit part. What are some of the moments or projects through Sati that really stayed with you, and where you saw resilience in action?
Um, uh, I always say that with the youth I work with, like, let's say 10 out of 10 youths, maybe like nine of them will fail, like as in like, there's a lot of there's drug abuse, there's a lot of, physical abuse, traumatic abuse. So when you're in that loop, in that cycle, often it is a cycle. So a lot of what I have to deal with is like constantly changing. So people, usually it's failure. Like it's a daily, like, okay, who did drugs today, or who's been self-mutilating today, or who, it's always like, so it kind of, a lot of it is taught me to focus on the little wins and being in the moment. So the goal is, the youth that we work with, okay, she's been off of drugs for, okay, it's 1 week, okay, it's 1 week and 1 day, 1 week and 2 days, because I've learned to see things in not non-traditional way, where like I think we kind of grow up in this like very Hollywood, like, culture where it's like, okay, everything is like a movie, there has to be a hero, there's have to be a heroine, or it has to be the enemy, and then there has to be an ending and a happy ending. But that's not really the way life is. Like life usually ends when you die, or maybe there's something after that, who knows, but it's a process, right? So how do we focus on the process today? So I mean, like I'm going on a tangent as well, but a lot of it is the youth I work with is just like I just want them to be okay today, and then
Yeah.
hopefully tomorrow will be okay and the next day will be okay. And it can get quite heavy, like um, you know, uh, like self-mutilation. We work with like youths that are cutting themselves because they're from a farm and their mother, their father's in jail, their mother's in debt, and then like putting more debt on the child. And that's often the youths I work with who are in sex trafficking or actually prostituting. Their family even knows about it. And they'll come
Mm,
and talk to us. Well, I got to send money to my father in jail. I need to send money to my mother, and I'll be like, well, obviously I hate to say it, but how they're showing this to you is not love, and they're like, well, she's my mother. And that's also could be a cultural thing too, right? So a lot of it is understanding each youth and each individual in the context that they're living in, and not
yeah.
setting traditional barriers or for them, and letting them understand of how to grow out of that, and how to see I always use the word empowerment, like, and I really mean it when I use it, because how do we empower them to stand on their own? And that's kind of where the skill sets come in, and everything from being a barista to a cook, or just being able to dance K-pop dance, or anything that kind of gives them more of a sense of value, and then letting them understand that they don't have to hurt themselves and they don't have to sacrifice themselves. And it's a slow process, and it's a kind of a recurring process. But I mean, as far as stories of you, I can tell you like a million stories. And they're all like very special. Like lately we've been working with a youth from Afghanistan, a refugee youth. She's like amazing. She's like 18 years old. Her mother and her sister had to run away from Afghanistan. It's almost like a movie, like mother never got an education, never got to work. She just cooked at home, like abusive father, abusive family. They had to run away. They came to Thailand, and the mother was not educated, so the daughter had to do most of the everything possible, like coordinating with everybody. And she's just been like, she's grown so much, and she's been with us. She speaks several languages. She's the head of the household. She's a scholarship student. It's like, it's incredible how empathetic she is as well. And I meet these incredible people who are so resilient, and I feel like
Mm,
like she should be a world leader, because not only she's smart and she speaks so many languages, so international, she's so empathetic. If we actually had leaders like her, then our world would be better. But the sad thing is, not only is she not going to be, she's not a global leader, she's not even globally accepted as a human being, as a
mm,
she has no home. She's a refugee, so like no country will even take her, which is like, for me, it's kind of mind blowing that there's like these two opposite polars. The people who are in power and have money and have power, they're not, for me, the most empathetic people I've met. While the
mm,
people who have empathy and intelligence, they're not given opportunities. So like this is
yeah.
kind of like one of example of one of the youths, that we're working with recently.
And I think that really hits hard for you, especially because of this idea of, you extending compassion towards others, but actually through this work, you're actually receiving a lot of it
Yeah.
as well. And that's the beauty of, the work of being in this space. I remember when I was in Dharamshala, and we don't need to add this into the interview, but volunteering in Dharamshala with Tibetan youth and monks and nuns, and seeing how kind and selfless and giving people are,
Yeah.
how kind and
Yeah.
giving they were, and how generous they can be, um, actually gave me more strength to be able to do my work. So
Yeah.
you see a lot of that, the struggle and the abuse, and but at the same time, you're also receiving a lot of that other people's empathy, other people's
Yeah.
strength as well in the darkness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think like kindness is such an overlooking trait now. It's like how like efficient are you, and how like smart are you, how rich you are, how talented you are. And like, I mean, I don't know, I don't really feel like talent without kindness is even important. Like, like I mean, I feel like it's the kind of a lost thing now, being kind in general. I think nice. I think people get confused too. I don't think everybody needs to be nice. I mean, like I grew up in New York, not everybody's like people are not really nice. Like they're just kind of doing their own thing. So I don't believe that you have. I don't, I'm indifferent about being nice. Some people don't really like deserve niceness, but I think everybody deserves kindness. So I think that's kind of something that been a bit overlooked these days.
And I think with this this
Hmm.
interview especially, we really want to talk about empathy and compassion. And what you just mentioned is
Yeah,
kindness. That is the
yeah,
basis of where we need to be as humanity. We really can't yield anything with just money. We absolutely have to get together to do something for the better good. And as depressing as it is, with the news every single day, with all the disasters that's happening,
yeah,
um, I think meeting people like you gives me hope, and it gives
yeah,
all of us more of a better way to think of what can we do more, and hopefully it can inspire other restaurants, chefs, restaurateurs to also do more
yeah.
with their businesses.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there is a niche that, and it is a growing niche. It's just not growing fast enough. Like COVID, I mean, I really feel for restaurants, being myself as well.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's been a difficult
Yeah.
time. And with margins and ingredients and costs, and now like I mean, everybody's spending a
Yeah.
lot less money. Like everything is like pretty much down, and I mean, the super duper fancy restaurants seem to still be doing well, but they're
Is
super
that it
niche, right? They're super
in
niche, right? I
Thailand?
mean,
Yeah.
I think like the very few, but overall most restaurants are like definitely down,
Yeah.
and then everything else is
Ye-
so much more expensive, right? Rent, everything is so yeah.
Yeah, we're hearing it the same in Hong Kong and
Yeah,
Singapore. Is like the Michelin level restaurants are not doing as good.
yeah,
People are definitely spending much less nowadays.
yeah,
So yeah, and earlier you mentioned about supply chain as well, which is, I think, especially for our Thai project at this moment, we're trying to build a regenerative supply chain such that whatever the tribes are growing in the north, in our project in the Hill Tribe, Wawi Valley
yeah,
area,
yeah,
that can actually extend. It's not just about growing and being resilient and regenerative.
yeah,
Yes, that's a fantastic. We can use that space
yeah,
to capture carbon, to sequester carbon. But at the end of the day, they need an income. And so, how do we
yeah,
build that supply chain in order to bring their medicinal herbs and their food,
yeah,
medicinal foods, as well as the cash crops, as well as the cacao and the coffee and the moringa
yeah, yeah,
into the everyday people.
yeah.
And that's something that I think farmers really need help with as well.
Like I said, Thailand's 70% farmland. So if anything about agriculture should be done, it'd be Thailand.
Yeah.
It just that for me, everything's like a rabbit hole. I get really deep into things. So for me, like it would be about like policy and how do we get the
Hmm.
government to subsidize? How do we and then the biggest mafia in Thailand is the conglomerate CP, right? So I'm already kind of battling with them because in a small scale because I'm nothing compared to them, right? They're like the richest in like in Thailand, but once we start tackling these things, then it gets quite deep, like, okay, because they're paying, they're not forcing the farmers, but the farmers are doing it by choice, but they're paying them, and then pesticides, and this whole thing about US selling it's very political. Like all this is very
Yeah.
political. Like where are the pesticides coming from? Who's the head of the pesticide organization? How come, America is selling all pests? It's like the more you
They're
go
all in
down
bed
it,
with each other.
yeah, the more you go down it, it's a rabbit hole. So you can't go in innocent. Like if you're
Yeah.
gonna go in the game, you have to be able to like go in guns blazing, or else you're just gonna.
Yeah.
Another issue, it's because of crop burning,
Mm.
because it's just the cheapest way, right? To do is to burn crops.
Yeah.
Um,
Burn and slash. Slash and
exactly,
burn. Slash and burn.
and a lot of that is for monoculture, monocropping, for like the new corn and palm
Yeah.
sugar. Palm sugar is the biggest two conglomerates in town are like animal feed and palm sugar, so the palm, so
Palm oil.
if yeah, and palm oil. So any way that we can find a solution for them not to burn, you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that that would
I should
that would
have
be
a look at the most recent reel that Aston Caraway tagged us with.
okay.
So that's the rice project that we
Yeah,
worked at in Bali.
yeah,
And the farmer community. There's now 156 farmers who's on board in the transition. And since they've stopped burning their straw, their rice straw, they have actually seen biodiversity return. They're using this straw as compost, so they're increasing the microorganisms and biodiversity underground. So they're seeing the benefits. And if they're seeing the benefits and their yield hasn't dropped and they can
yeah,
sell the rice at a higher price and a higher quality, then why aren't they doing it, right?
yeah.
So give them the tools and the knowledge, let them see for themselves, and then we just scale that way.